You're enrolled in an organizational behavior class at a university, maybe even with me at my university, and you see things in the syllabus like, this course is designed to cover the theory, research, and practice of organizational behavior, or students will be exposed to concepts associated with individual, group, and organizational levels of analysis. And you might be thinking, how did this end up in my schedule? Sounds broad, abstract, like something I'm gonna nod along politely during class and then never think about again. But actually, understanding organizational behavior is one of the most powerful tools you can have for navigating contemporary organizational life. I'm Professor Bailey and I have a Ph.D. in organizational communication, and this is Everyday Organizational Behavior, a research-based series where we unpack the micro moments, relational dynamics, and people-driven forces that shape our work and life, often a lot more than we realize. Where does organizational behavior come from? The first thing to know is that organizations didn't always care about people. For a long time, organizations cared about output, productivity, and efficiency. Looking back to the early 1900s, think like World War I, work life was brutal. Long hours, dangerous work conditions, almost no attention to people's well-being, and if you thought you were getting Christmas off to spend with your family, no ma'am, you were not. You were probably not even getting a lunch break. People were treated as extensions of machines rather than as humans with needs, emotions, relationships, and limits. Classical management theorists like Taylor, Fayol, and Weber reflected this mindset. They focused on structure, control, standardization, and maximizing profits at all costs. But eventually, our thinking shifted. With industrialization, growing organizations, and the emergence of social sciences, researchers began to realize something that was pretty radical for the time, that organizations weren't machines, they were people systems. By the mid-1900s, after World War II and well into the Vietnam era, psychology, sociology, and communication research began creeping into business schools. So instead of just tracking productivity metrics and dollar signs, people started asking questions like, why do people act the way they do at work? And how do leaders influence groups? And what motivates people? And why do teams either succeed or fall apart? And this human-centered shift laid the groundwork for what we now call organizational behavior. A major turning point came in 1987 when organizational psychologist Benjamin Schneider from the University of Maryland published a foundational paper entitled The People Make the Place. And Schneider argued something that was pretty basic now, but was a profound realization then, and that's that organizations are defined by the people in them. The people who apply to work in them, the people who join them, the people who stay, and the people who leave. This is the attraction, selection, attrition model, or ASA. People are attracted to or drawn to organizations they feel fit them, and then organizations select people who reflect their values. And those who fit tend to stay, and those who don't fit tend to leave, which is attrition. And over time, this leads to homogeneity, where we have shared values and behaviors come more similar, and organizations then start to match the people that are in them. I want to make this concrete with an example. So let's say you like outdoorsy stuff and you want to be in nature and be around people who go on adventures and talk about their adventures. So you try to work somewhere that aligns with those interests, maybe Patagonia or the National Park Service. Patagonia was started by Yvon Chouinard, an outdoorsy climber who needed durable, reusable gear. So he taught himself blacksmithing to make it for himself and then sold it to other climbers. Early on, he partnered with an engineer, Tom Frost, who was also a climber, and then a businesswoman, Chris Tompkins, who was also a climber, and they inevitably hired more outdoorsy people who cared about adventures and venture gear. Meanwhile, people who were actually kind of indoorsy but just needed a job end up leaving because they don't really care that much about adventure gear. If you don't fit the vibe of a place, oftentimes you fade out, and the people who stay are fired up about backpacks, carabiners, or whatever else you need to climb a mountain. Over time, organizations become shaped by the psychological attributes, in other words, the collective personality, interests, and values of their members, and the members and the organization become more homogenized. This insight reframed management and organizational research and theories. People in organizations matter. People shape culture. People make the place. This opened the door to theories about people, then relationships, then communication, then identity, and eventually the full field we now call organizational behavior. That's where organizational behavior comes from, a shift from viewing organizations as machines to viewing them as human systems shaped by the people inside of them. Organizational behavior is in your business curriculum to provide the perspective on people that make organizations the way they are. Tune in for the next video where we'll talk about what organizational behavior is and why it matters to your success in work and life.